We have a handful of questions here on the text line. Top of the list is one for you, Mister.
I might have an answer.
Oh, Mike.
My mic's off? Tap, tap.
There you are.
There you go.
I'm back.
What, Jarod, is the best way to hook a single hook on a 3.0 or a 3.5 to keep the same action as the dual treble? Now, as you pointed out, anytime you alter the weight of a plug, it changes the action.
Yeah, I mean, very minimal, too. I mean, you don't have to alter it a whole lot. I mean, just changing from a, if you're using 2 split rings to 1 swivel to whatever, it can change the whole action of the plug. So on a 3.5 maglet, my favorite way to run it by far is with a single 2-aught sidewash off the back and a size 5 crane swivel, size 7 crane swivel. So, the hooks I like for the back of it are Gamakatsu 510, Big Rivers, Owner makes a good one, Mustad makes a good one. But I do like the Big Rivers. Those kind of seem the ones I prefer. 2-aughts off the back, the 3.5. On the 3.0, I would run a size 1 off the back with a size 10 crane swivel. And you just leave the split ring that comes standard on the plug, attach the crane swivel to that, and then attach your open-end sidewash to the other end of the swivel. And works great that way. Both of them run, the 3.0 and 3.5 with those 2 configurations run absolutely perfect.
And if guys rig that up that way and they're not getting the action on the plug they should get, I mean, what's your adjustment availability?
It should be right on. I mean, all the maglip are, like I said, they're the same animal. It's not like, a lot of the other plugs with the screw and pull points that have variations as far as how they run and you have to tune them. These things are all tuned right out of package, like I say, and so they're very, very consistent as far as that configuration of the 2-aught with the 3.5s or the size 1 with the 3.0s.
Gotcha.
And again, if I'm fishing slower, froggier water, I might go down to a 1-aught or 1 on the 3.5 just to, give it a little bit more action in that slower water.
So sticking with the old text line here, we got multiple questions we need to get caught up on, and as we're trying to get Larry Carpenter on the phone, we'll go ahead and jump on a couple of these. So I got one here asking, was the 38% over harvest combined commercial, sportsman, and tribal, or just 38% over harvest by tribe? Now, when we threw that number out earlier, we were talking specifically to Chinook and Grays Harbor this year as an example of, yet again, another opportunity for them to take more than what was on the table. See, when the co-managements come together, so I'm talking about WDFW and the Quinaults, they have a forecast of XYZ number of fish returning. And via the Bolt decision, I mean, we all recognize and understand, well, it's 50-50, right? And we just kind of throw that around, 50-50. What does that mean? Well, if you have, 20,000 fish coming back and you need 10,000 to meet escapement for natural spawn, hatchery fish don't count other than dividing up harvest.
Right.
Natural spawn, we have to have 10,000 fish hit the gravel. That would leave 5,000 fish per side. Mm-hmm. So you got the recreational side. Now, in Grays Harbor, understand, recreational doesn't mean exclusive recreational. Our 50% is divided up amongst ourselves, recreational fleet, the non-tribal commercial gill netters, which is a point of contention, and, of course, the Chehalis tribe, because they are not recognized in the Bolt Treaty. Okay, so they don't count on the Quinault side. Quinaults have their 50%. Our 3 participating parties have our 50%. Now, when you go into a season and you say, and, WDFW sets a season, and it's quota-based. Everything is numbers. Paperfish, as Fly mentioned before. They factor in these models, and they plug numbers in, and they got these spreadsheets, and they can change the numbers of how many they expect to be taken out in the bay, how many they expect to be handled in fresh water. You have mortality rates to figure in because not everybody releases fish that survive. Mm-hmm. So we have handling mortality rates. You have bycatch in the commercial fleet. You got all these equations you got to factor in. That being said, if you have a directed or targeted Chinook fishery or not. Now, this year, Grays Harbor, sports angling fleet, commercial, non-tribal commercial, we were not given a opportunity to harvest Chinook.
No Chinook fishery.
Even though the numbers would indicate we should have. But based on the management practices and the plan, we have to meet escapement needs 3 out of 5 years.
3 out of 5, right.
So we're basically, as some of us would say that worked on committee formally, is, we're in the penalty box. We got to take a year sitting on the bench. We don't get to target them. But they do factor in certain things. One, you're going to have bycatch with the non-tribal commercials going after coho. They are going to get some Chinook.
Sure.
The Chehalis tribe is going to take some Chinook, and the mortality rate, as I mentioned. So on the table this year was 4,600 or so Chinook, wild Chinook per side. Quinaults were entitled to 4,600.
Yep.
Sporties would have been entitled to 4,600. But again, we didn't have a targeted fishery. But they factored in like roughly 1,300 fish based on bycatch of commercial, and the Chehalis tribe took 700 to 800. Okay.
Yep.
The problem here is, and when you're talking about meeting escapement, we need wild fish to hit the gravel. To meet escapement and spawn, so we can repeat this process year in and year out. Eventually, a recreational fleet might have an opportunity like we do over on the hump tulips, because over there we meet escapement needs on wild fish. When you have 4,300 or so fish on the table, wild fish, actually 6,000 combined when you go hatchery and wild, but yet one group takes 8,700. Okay.
Yeah, and to break that down further, so it's the wild Chinook take was 4614 was the number that we had to work with basically.
Yep.
The number that we have come out with in the end for wild fish taking those tribal fisheries that we're referring to is almost 7,400.
Yep.
So that's 38% over.
Right. 3 fish shy of 7,400. So why is that an issue? Well, because again, it's management philosophies. The Quinaults will say we don't have a conservation issue. So if that's their take on it, we got a problem right there. How can you say that? How can you stand there with a straight face and say that across the table from your co-management team when we haven't met escapement year after year after year? That's a big concern. So if that's your MO, then you are going to harvest fish based on what you feel you're entitled to and what the run will support. But if you fish it under escapement year in and year out, where's the penalty? Where is finally somebody in this state going to step up and go, enough's enough? The Bolt decision entitles you to 50%, both hatchery and wild fish, and the numbers are there, and they meet at table and they say there's 4,300 or 6,000 fish on the table per side. Now the state, as we've recognized in our ocean fisheries and some of our other in-river fisheries, if we hit quota and we have 3 weeks left on a fishery in the summertime, it doesn't matter. We shut down the fishery.
It's done. This happens everywhere. And we talk about this.
You
on the
can't
Columbia,
take,
you
can't take fish out in the ocean. You can't take fish lower Columbia and not leave fish for upper Columbia. You can't leave, no fish making it up to the tributaries and some of these main stems.
Yep.
You got to draw the line somewhere.
Yep.
And so if we have to do that on our side, and again, it's based on conservation and ensuring enough fish get upriver, in river. How come the other side doesn't have to do it? And if you're impacting our ability to have a fishery, such as a Chinook fishery on the Chehalis Basin, because you overharvest and don't allow escapement, how is that not something to battle out in court?
There were a series of dates that happened from middle of September, and there was like a 3-week period there where there was a week where the nets were in, a week off, and then from the 20th to the 26th, there was a second fishery. So 2 fisheries. There were 6,200 Chinook caught in those 2 fisheries. Now those numbers right there should say stop. That's it. 6,200 fish. That's the number you need to get to. 2 weeks of fishing continued after that.
Right.
There were 2 additional weeks of just we're just going to put the nets in. The nets are going to go in.
Well, and the state's not off the hook in this regard
Not
either.
at all.
We're talking
Not at
Chinook in this side of it. We didn't have a Chinook fishery, as I've stated. But now let's go back to coho, Shangle. And we didn't get into it with Steve, and we're going to put this in front of Larry Carpenter and see what the commission feels about this. But he threw out the date October 19th. It was already on the radar. They were meeting with the co-managers to say, hey, is there an issue here? Are you guys getting coho in the nets? No, we're not. They had already looked upon the closures of the ocean fisheries as kind of lackluster. One question I wanted to ask him, did they actually hit quota in Westport? Or, or how many thousand fish short of actual sport recreational quota were we? Because I hadn't got that number yet. But that being said, if you're already on the table at October 19th looking at a situation here that's pending closure, how in the heck do you allow the non-tribal commercial gillnet fleet to go in for 3 days? They had 4 days on the calendar. So here we're talking calendar again. We're not talking quota.
Right.
And I don't want to hear this crap that, we weren't getting close to the percentages, so we felt it was okay to put them in. No, if we weren't getting close to percentages because the fish weren't there, there was absolutely no reason. And somebody better be able to justify this moving forward. And hopefully, if we're not talking with Larry today, maybe next week.
Yeah.
But the commission better take a look at, if we have this management plan based on conservation that we spent a long time putting together, implementing, meetings down at Olympia, the commission signed off on it. This was a big deal. And you allow non-tribal commercial gillnetters to go in for 3 days and harvest a bunch of fish. And then you say, we can't allow you to have the 4th day because of conservation concerns. No, the conservation concerns were on the table the
Should have
week
happened
before.
a long time before that.
There was
Right.
no reason to put them nets in
Nope.
for 3 days, and somebody's going to have to be held accountable for that one. So both sides, and we're talking gill nets, of course.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
if you talk to me, I'm going to say ban gill nets. I'm not saying ban commercial fishing.
No, not at all.
I'll go on
No.
record and say that and have that conversation with anybody any day. And
Yeah.
a lot of people wear those shirts and sweatshirts proudly.
Mhm.
Ban gill nets
Yeah.
because it's non-selective fishing. You cannot fish conservation side of things if you're sticking gill nets in the water. I don't care. You can tell me, argue me, mesh size and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Gill
There's
net
still
goes in, you're
bycatch.
killing everything.
There's still bycatch. I mean,
So-
whatever swims in, it's
Yeah.
toast.
And probably never in our lifetime we'll never see them go that drastic to get gill nets out. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But they have some ground to stand on, Shangle. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, when we continue to overharvest beyond the means of meeting escapement year after year, at some point I would think the state's able to prove that. Take them into court and say, we're getting back
Right.
to quota, 50-50 quota base, that's it.
That's ultimately where it will end up. There's no
You gotta
there's
hope
no way
so.
to avoid it. Yep. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump back into a little bit of Pacific Northwest fishing history. I want to talk about a piece of gear that exists in the Yakima Bait Factory that has been there since when? The 50s?
Yep, 50s.
50s.
50s. Yeah, 1950s, man. It's pretty crazy to watch this thing work and know that there
Shangle
was
was
no
around back
technology.
then.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, phones are open. 800-829-0950. 206-286-9595. You're listening to Sports Radio 950 KJR and Comcast Sportsnet Northwest.